Hello there, my name is Martin Henley. This is the Effective Marketing Content Extravaganza. And if you're new here, you couldn't possibly know that I am on a mission to give you everything you could possibly need if you are looking to be more successful in your business. Providing, of course, what you need is to know more about and be implementing more enthusiastically, more efficiently, and more effectively sales and marketing in your business, which is, of course, what you need. You need more customers more profitably, and eventually everything you need to achieve that will be right here on this channel. And let's not pretend there's not already a lot of stuff for you to get busy with right now. So what goes on here is I'm giving you everything I know about sales and marketing. That's the series that happens on a Monday. On a Tuesday, I pull in anyone I can find with experience to share that's going to be useful to you if you are looking to be more successful in your business. That's Talk Marketing on a Tuesday. Every other Wednesday, Melanie Farmer comes through and we speculate wildly about what's going on in the marketing news and what it might mean for you in your business. And on the other Wednesday, I review so you don't have to. Very occasionally, I'm here on a Thursday thinking out loud. And on a Friday, we react to the very best and the very worst of marketing content on the internet. So if that sounds like it might be interesting and useful, please tell me it does. We're only here to be interesting and useful. Now would be the very best time to like, share, subscribe, and comment and get involved, because that will give us the motivation to continue on this epic journey. Now, today, you lucky sausages, if you are tuning in on the day that it premieres, it will be a Wednesday, and it's that Wednesday when Melanie Farmer comes through and we look at the marketing news and we speculate wildly about what it might mean for you in your marketing life, in your marketing business. It is the concierge of co-creation at Crazy Might Work. It's Melanie Farmer. Good morning, Melanie Farmer.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I am extraordinarily well, thank you. How are you?
I'm pretty good. It's getting very wintry here in Sydney, Australia, which is quite nice. I always enjoy a bit of autumn/winter.
Excellent. That is quite nice. I like a little bit. Think autumn is my favourite season. Of course, where I am in the world, we don't really have seasons, so it either rains or it doesn't. Is what goes on where I am. But if I missed any season, it would probably be autumn. And I remember when I was in the UK, I used to be out on my mountain bike every weekend. I used to love the changes of the season. And I used to really like autumn because autumn you need some resolve. In summer it's easy to get on your bike and go out, but in autumn you need some resolve. You need some resilience if you're going to go out, continue to be out on your bike in autumn in the UK. So you've also experienced an exercise and resilience this past couple of days.
Yes.
Yes. Is this your boast that you've overcome this tragedy?
Yeah, my tragedy is that Basil has died, but more importantly, I have been involved in a smallish accident, and it's the first one of my life. So I may be massively overreacting to something that the rest of the world is like, "What? You get over it. Like this happens to everyone. It's normal, and you're not gonna die." It didn't. Yeah. It's not something. Yes. So that's never fun. But
no.
if you've never had something happen to you before, like I've never even had a scratch, then it's unreasonably shocking.
It's traumatic. I mean, let's not pretend it's anything other than traumatic.
Yes, traumatic.
Yes.
Especially because it's my nice new car, which I've never had a new car, and it's like 4 months old. But listen, I've been hearing friends and family have been telling me their horror stories, and it all makes me feel better. I have a friend who bought a brand new Mercedes and then drove it out of the lot and was involved in an accident that where he was fine, but the thing got completely written off. And I'm like, okay, that didn't happen to me. All is well. And so it's just, I'm old enough and ugly enough now that where I should have this experience in my life, not that I want it.
Okay, so
I will get through this.
You also have a friend whose brakes failed 2 days after he passed his driving test when he was 18. So, shit happens when you're driving around in cars. It's a minor miracle. The boast should be that you got to your age and you've never had so much as a scratch on a car, So that should be the boast, really. That should be the boast. My boast is that I'm getting busy, a little bit busy. I'm not even yet. I'm just thinking about doing some business development And already things are starting to happen. So I don't know if it's the universe responding to knowing that I'm ready to be busier, or I don't know. It can only be that I haven't done anything yet. But I'm about to start developing my little business, I think, because I haven't done anything for like 8 years. So 8 years, and I'm still busy. It's insane. So maybe you don't need marketing. Maybe that's my boast. You don't need marketing. Of course, you need marketing. The product is marketing, and I've maintained the standard of the product for these 8 years. Maybe that's, I don't know. I should shut up now
Yeah,
before I get myself
just being
into trouble.
awesome. That'll do it.
What's that?
Just being awesome. Being awesome
Yes.
will do it. People
Yes.
will people will come. Just
Yes.
delivering the awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited that I'm just about to get involved and do some actual business development. I'm really excited because it's so much fun. This is what I tell people. If there's a secret to marketing, it's that it is really fun. It's much easier than you could possibly imagine and much more rewarding than you could possibly imagine. So do it. So I'm excited that I'm about in the first time to do some actual proactive marketing. I'm going to start phoning up people and make sure they know about me. That's what I'm going to do, or know about us, myself, and the people that I'm kind of involved with. Okay, super cool. So we're not here to talk about my business development. We're not here to talk about your amazing resilience that includes overcoming the passing of plants and now car accidents. We're here to talk about the marketing news. So I'm not sure what's caught your attention in the last couple of weeks since we did one of these. Is there something going on that has caught your attention?
Yes. A couple of things. One is the kidfluencer culture. So, everyone will be aware of what an influencer is and does in social media settings. So, this is a story about kidfluencers, like the use of children to influence purchase habits and the lack of regulation in that space, and some of the concerns that are being raised about that. And the second story that's got my attention is some of the changes that are happening around advertising options within Snapchat. So it's kind of that one is just sort of interesting me how the differentiation between platforms is starting to, in some ways, I suppose, disappear. The way that revenue is being generated. So it's an
Yes.
interesting move from Snapchat.
Okay, cool. Excellent. Okay, that's good. I would have put a packet of polos on you wanting to talk about the King's coronation. I would have been sure that would have appeared
Oh
on
yeah,
your
I
radar.
thought so too. Yeah. I'm like, no, I
Okay.
can't.
Right, so not to worry because that's on my radar. So we can talk about the King's coronation. I mean, for me, it's not particularly interesting or useful. I don't know, but that is on my radar. That's something that I'm interested in. Some interesting things are going on in the media, in the way that the media is constituted, which is quite interesting. I don't know if you follow it, but Tucker Carlson has been fired by Fox News in America. And he had 3 million people watching his show every night. He was the most successful news anchor in America. So that's happened. And he's just put out in the last 24 hours a message that he's going to be broadcasting the show on Twitter. So I think that's interesting. That's on my radar. And then the other thing, the Drop the Dead Donkey story, is LinkedIn has turned 20 years old. So I think we could probably take a minute or two to reflect on LinkedIn. So that's what's going on. So I think the biggest news is, I think, this coronation thing. So Marketing Beat are talking about it. I mean, it's just event marketing now, isn't it? Is what goes on. It's like there's something happening. You have to do something current. So what they're doing is they're talking about how brands are celebrating. So Reese's crowns. Reese have made some crowns. You can eat crown-shaped chocolates. I'm not sure what this is about. 19 Crimes is a wine brand, and they're talking about family riffs and dramas. Like, some people in your family might be into it, some of them might not. That's a little bit close for me to the history of the royal family, where we know that people have been murdered, brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, etc., etc. Burger King removes the burger from their logo ahead of the coronation. That was a easy thing for them to do. Alzheimer's Society are reminding us that 1 in 3 of us won't remember the coronation. I won't remember it, and I haven't got Alzheimer's. And the Times unveils a touching new campaign to celebrate the wait is over 74-year-old king. Heinz Tomato King Chup. So basically, this is just lots of brands just leveraging a little bit the fact that there has been a huge coronation style. Oh, and then there's the Celebrations chocolate sculpture. It's a bust of King Charles III made out of chocolate. And then the other thing, I saw 2 stories. Oh, accept all. King is a real marketing opportunity, talking about how the royals have always been amazing. Oh, you won't see it. But apparently, Coronation chicken kicked off the last coronation, which was 70 years ago. Corgis doubled in value because of the Queen. I don't know. It happened. And we have to kind of acknowledge it, I think, in 2023, that it happened. And it was, as well as being a huge historic royal event, it was kind of a marketing event. You'll have something to say about it. Will you?
Yeah, Corgis are worth a lot. That's my only comment here.
Yes.
No, all right. So great. I mean, because I often pile in on this sort of stuff, like with the Queen's passing and all that. You know, it's a very. This is very different because it's a much more celebratory moment. But I will say that. The British Empire and the royal family, they historically are not necessarily loved the world over. So if your brand is piling in on that, there's always going to be, some who experience that brand as suboptimal, put it that way. So, but I think, look, the majority, those brands that you walked through are mainly British brands. I think it's entirely appropriate for them to do something, and I think it's that is the head of state, so it's appropriate to not be silent on things like that. I mean, it's interesting because the Edelman Trust Barometer report for 2023 was talking about what brands should and shouldn't be vocal on, and I don't think any of those things that you shared, they managed to steer away from inappropriate use of that, it aligned with, like, say, for example, the chocolate stuff and all that aligns with that brand's identity.
Yes.
It's when they go off and start commenting on, transgender footballers or something, and you're like, this has nothing to do with Reese chocolates or
Yes,
whatever.
yes.
Which so I think in this case, it's just a celebratory thing. If you are a brand that is identifying as British, you should totally do whatever you can and get involved, because that's your head of state. It's a party. If you are a fun brand, it's just a perfect opportunity to just do some sort of bit of British humour. Why not? I
Yes.
quite like that sort of yeah. So I think it's that sort of thing, and
Yeah, and I think similar, really. I mean, I'm not a royalist in any way, shape, or form. I think dissent against the royal family is growing. I think the amazing thing about the Queen was that she was such an incredible human being that she managed to make the royal family feel normal. Do you know what I mean? This one family that has all of this privilege is worth whatever it is, £28 billion. Gets £300 million of taxpayers' money, sits on all of this property, etc., etc., etc. The amazing thing about her is that she made that seem like it was appropriate or normal. So I don't know. I think it works. Like, they made all the football teams. I don't know if they made them. They suggested that they should play the national anthem before the football matches. Interestingly, the football matches went on, even though it was a bank holiday weekend. They probably didn't need to. Famously, some football clubs really don't like the royal family, like Liverpool, so there was very loud booing while they were playing it. So I think, Charles, the thing about this is that, if you think about the brand, the royal family, clearly it's taken a dent with the passing of the Queen and now the coronation of Prince Charles, King Charles, whatever his name is. I can't quite get my head around it, but it's all fine. But I think it's a little bit like what we were talking about last time with the bud issues. It's a little bit. It's becoming more political. So I think brands need to think. You need to think about in your business. Is everyone going to like this? You don't want to be split in the room, etc., etc. We've spoken about it before, but you know what? It just does. It just does. Any event like this does kind of draw a light on the brand that is the royal family. And I think that's a brand that's probably in decline. So I think the next time there's a coronation, although the next candidate seems to be a much more likable, appropriate person, Prince William, much more than Prince Charles. I don't know. So all these things, it is just brand marketing, isn't it? The royal family is a brand. You want to align yourself with that brand.
He's
Otherwise,
78. I don't imagine he's going to be at the helm particularly long. Even if he makes it to 90, that's still nowhere near as long
15
as
years.
his mum, etc. But I think there's definitely opportunity in being in touch with what is British. I mean, there's nothing more British than the royal family. So I think if I was like, say, Tetley tea or Yorkshire tea, the opportunity is there to say we can all agree that a cup of tea will solve every problem. So I could see that being a campaign that would
Yes.
potentially resonate, because if we are talking about like this is a polarized world and whatever, no matter which way you vote, whichever way you feel about the royals, I would place some money that if you're British, a cup of tea wouldn't be a bad thing, no matter, so trying to find moments to unify under the banner called Britain, that would be a time to do that. And I think like that's an opportunity for tea brands in particular
Yes.
over there. When you think it's like it's time to, people are having, you know, um, bunting and cake parties and whatnot. So not everyone's on board with that, but they'll all have a cup of tea. So that certainly could have been. I don't know if they did anything. Are you googling
Yes.
Tetley or Yorkshire? Yeah, totally have to do that. Are you on
Yeah.
Tetley? I don't know if they're the most.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at support. So it is becoming political. It is becoming polarized. So according to a YouGov poll in October 2022, only 55% believe the monarchy is good for Britain, compared with 88% in 1969. And another report at the end of 2021, a record low of 55% said it was important to have a monarchy. So it is becoming politicized. It is, but what do we call this? This is event marketing or not event marketing? What is it? There must be a word for this. There must be a word for what this is, where there's something happens in the news and you leverage that to thingy. Maybe it's just that. Um, yeah, I think interesting that it's gone on. Whenever these things happen, it causes it moves focus to those brands, and 100%. I think the royal family is a brand that is in massive decline, and I don't see Charles as being in any way fit to reverse that. I mean, already you must have seen the thing where he got in a mood with the pen when he had to sign the thing. Did you see that?
Um, to be fair, like if I'm 78, I'm likely not to remember how to operate a pen. So that's a long day. Like they really, that is a very very long day for these people to be sitting, standing, walking, and whatever.
Yeah, he's
So
74. To be fair, he's only 74, and I did think
74.
that. I did. I mean, I
Okay.
must have seen about 8 seconds of footage of this because that's how interested I am, and I did think he probably doesn't want this either. Do you know what I mean? It's like he probably prefer not to have to do this all day. I mean, he's worth supposedly 1.2 billion on his own, so it's a good gig. But it must be really annoying waking up and thinking, "Oh shit, I've got to do this all day today."
Yeah,
Do you know what I
I
mean?
have to kind of get. Yeah, I mean, it's an
Yeah,
interesting thing with Camilla. I mean, I watched, I don't know, probably a third of the coverage, dipping in and out, and there was almost nothing around Camilla.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so, of course, it was interesting how that coverage was fairly silent on that. They talked more about William, who was
Yeah.
in the party kind of following the coach. So yeah,
Yeah, but the issue is Camilla's not particularly good for the brand either, is she? There was all the stuff when there was the passing of Princess Diana, and she was going to be the people's queen, and then she's not anymore, and then now there's this Camilla, and she's not the beautiful young, people person, and then there's all the stuff about, oh my God, she's not good for the brand. Yeah, so it's interesting. I think it's a
no,
brand in decline. I think we'll see it go below 40% approval before Prince William comes along. And I think by the time Prince William comes along, it will be an entirely different thing. I don't think we'll see anything like this again. And I'm quite happy about that. I didn't see this one,
yeah,
I'll be honest with you.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's a bit out of touch when you think of like what the world is dealing with right now, especially in Britain.
Yes.
Like you think about
14
nurses
million
and
people
whatever,
living in poverty in Britain, and then this one family has 28 billion pounds worth of the wealth and gets 300 million a year. Do you know what I mean? This is what happens when these events take place, is everyone starts thinking about it differently. There's 4 or 5 billion children in the UK living in poverty. It's
yeah,
the UK as a
unacceptable.
brand is in trouble also because
Yeah,
of the way the standard of living is going. Homelessness up, chronic diseases up.
yeah, yeah.
It's the UK is also a brand in decline, I would say.
Well, I think there's the argument that the revenue that the existence of a royal family generates, which is significant. People buying like things with crowns on the man, all the brands that sort of have that, um, the tourism. There's a lot. There's a lot that is there because of it, but the amount of money and assets and so forth is pretty phenomenal. I mean, they do good things. That is, I think some of the
Melanie
sustainability
Farmer, we
projects that
cannot
Charles
have this conversation. I will get cancelled.
you're going to get violent, yeah.
No, I will get
But let's
cancelled.
move
I
on
can't.
to
For me, there is no cost benefit to the royal family. People will still come and look
balance.
at Buckingham Palace, whether there's a
If no one's
there's a
there.
person in it or not. Do you know what I mean? They definitely will. So no, there is no cost benefit. The country would be a better place if that 28 billion pounds worth of wealth were redistributed. Maybe just redistribute it to the 14 million people who are living in poverty. That would be a much better use of that money for me.
Yeah, look, the
Let's
health
move on
system as
before I
well.
say
Yeah,
something.
let's do it.
Before I
Let's do
say
it.
something.
Go.
Okay, good. Right, let's talk about Kidfluencers. This to me seems like a more like safer ground.
Uniting? Very
So what's
uniting,
going on here
right?
with the Kidfluencers?
Okay, so kidfluencer culture is harming kids in several ways, and there's no meaningful regulation of it. So this is an Australian university, well, 2 universities in Australia, a couple of academics who've kind of been pretty vocal on this. This is on the 3rd of May, 2023. And so they've done this research and report and so forth. And I guess the recommendation is about like thinking about child protection and regulation in this space, because Insta kids, as we call it, are on the rise. So it is interesting. I mean, I have mixed feelings about this because I know that it's fun as a kid to do this stuff, but the obvious and pervasive downside is the idea of like lack of privacy for kidfluencers who are basically endorsing toys or sweets or whatever it is, the commodification of children, and so there's this culture about getting kids to sell products, but so there's these parents who are giving their kids toys and saying review it, play with the toy, and talk about how you feel, and that is a very weird way to deploy and exploit your children. There's of course the issue of really genuine. What's going on over there?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah, you're playing that. Right.
I press play on this because I'm interested to see this Ryan's World, for example. I mean, this is when he was really young, but I experienced this because, as you know, there is a child I spent time with But to have a look at this channel, he has
Right.
54.7 billion views. This one video has, where he's playing with McDonald's toys, has 104 million views. He has 35 million subscribers. And this started when he was a small child. So if we were to go to his channel, you will see that he's much older now. Like he's 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And maybe older than that, 9 or 10. And all these kids do in these videos. So I'm surprised that they're focusing here on Instagram, because the thing is YouTube, and there's Nikita, and there's dozens of them. And all they do is open like piles and piles and piles of toys and play with these toys. And so I think it's interesting that we're not talking about this. Like there was a debate at some point, I vaguely remember, about the appropriateness of advertising toys to children. Well, then, but that was on the TV. But in those days, at least there was some content, and then there was 2 or 3 minutes of ads, and then there was some more content. Whereas now this is just all advertising, and these families move into these massive houses, and there's swimming pools, and there's so. I mean, I think this is an issue, and I'm astounded that nobody's talking about it, because clearly it's an issue. Do you know what I mean? It's like driving desire, or I don't know. It's like, because Devon, who I hang out with a lot, isn't like, I want that. So I don't know if the effect is as obvious as you might think it is, but the promotion of these hugely overprivileged kids, and there's a cost to that, as well, is like, what is it doing for their mental health, and their sense of being and their sense of well-being? It's huge. It's vast. Like for those particular individual kids, and for the millions of kids who are clearly watching this over and over and over again. So really interesting. What is your thinking?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I like that it's being called out, and the academics who have done this research and are calling this out. I like that they're talking about child social media literacy, and business accountability, that sort of thing. So they're talking about, these are communication and marketing academics, which isn't where I would have expected the most vocal voices to come from. So it's really quite encouraging to me that the academic community in the marketing world, marketing professors are basically saying this needs to be sorted out. And there is this acknowledgement that it's difficult. There's summits happening around the world. It's not just Australia. It's like you can see in this article, they talk about the UK, France, and so on. And there's different acts and so forth. But I think the concerns are, of course, about privacy. I think that, it's one thing being for and doing something, but like now you're very exposed. You are, there's a lot of money involved. If you then want to go and be a recluse or whatever, like what is it doing to the child's psychological well-being?
Yes. Well, look at
And then there
Macaulay
is
Culkin. Do you know what I mean? Macaulay Culkin
right,
hadn't been
any
seen.
child star.
Yes. So Macaulay Culkin hadn't been seen 57 billion times by the time he was 8. And look at the life that he led. Do you know what I mean? So we know that this kind of attention, which is much bigger than it ever was, is damaging to people's lives. But nobody...
Well, when they're
seen no
developing,
discussion of this. Yes.
Yeah. And I think I'd love to see, Drew Barrymore, Shirley Temple is no longer with us, but, these people who have really, even the, I'm forgetting his name now, but there was the one child in Skippy, Skippy the bush kangaroo.
Yes.
He was like the only child on that set, and the adult actors would sit around playing poker and drinking whiskey, and he would have join in. Like, so that's a whole other thing. He wasn't
Yes,
endorsing
yes,
things,
yes,
but
yes.
like in this scenario, if Ryan likes a toy, it sells. So what could possibly go wrong? Well, a lot, and it becomes very potentially gendered and very and like um, that endorsement, is it real? It becomes very manipulated. What agency does a child have? What rights do they have? So yeah, I think it's really an interesting challenge that as a sector we've been relatively silent on, and it is about youth safety and well-being. We do have an obligation to, you know, it's not just parental consent. What is the child's, um, is this going to do more harm than good? All of that, what, and fame is
It's going to
fleeting. Like
do
if
more harm
Ryan
than
shut
good.
that thing down,
Yeah, and
yeah,
the thing about this is,
yeah,
the thing about kids in particular is that it's completely unfiltered. It's the most influenceable people on the planet, which is children, being influenced by these other children. It's like, and you talk about there being money involved. I think it's about, they say like $3 per thousand per thousand views. So typically around 6,000 a million views is around $6,000. So this one video, which has achieved 104 million views, is worth around $600,000. This one video. So the
yeah.
money is vast, and you see these families. They start, and it's just them and the kids, and then immediately they're moving into these houses. These houses aren't even decorated because they're too big to. Do you know what I mean? And it's too new, and it's too all of this stuff. So it is mad, but it's pure and it's unfiltered, and it is a recommendation. Like clearly, McDonald's have benefited from this hugely. So of course, McDonald's, the first time they get anything new, they're going to ship it out to these 10 or 15 families. And it is global. So it is happening. I think this is an American family, but there are Russian families that we see. And the crazy thing is, Devon will sit there and watch an entire episode in Russian. He doesn't speak
Yeah.
Russian, but he's still getting these toys are cool. These toys are cool. This is what I should want. You imagine, but he doesn't say, I want that, I want that, I want that. But surely that has to be the benefit for them. I've got another story which didn't quite make my list, just because I thought this was interesting. I mean, it's a tiny thing. It's in the Khaleej Times, which is in the UAE, isn't it? The Khaleej Tower and stuff. But they're talking about, what are they talking about? They're talking about, let's get rid of that. Middle East influencers marketing domain will hit 1.3 billion valuation in 2023, says this particular report, which is astounding to me. That is such a huge amount of money. 1.3 billion in a region in the Middle East, which is a population of, what is the population of the Middle East? Is it 100 million? Is it 200 million? It's not much more than that. Like Saudi is 30 million.
Are they
The
saying like
UAE is,
revenue, or is it valuation?
it's the
What's
valuation.
what's
So I don't quite know what the valuation means either. Does that mean the amount 1.3 billion valuation?
so that's sort of, yeah. I mean, that's kind of like Reddit territory. If you go six
Yes.
times turnover, yeah,
So
which is in the top
76.9%
ten.
of marketers said that influencer marketing is a top priority. 76.5% of marketers have channeled the investments from TV, print, and outdoor to influencers in a telling revelation. I mean, they're talking 79% of respondents felt mid-tier influencers are most important to deliver their brand message. 71.8% of marketers expressed they measure the engagement of their influencer marketing campaigns. And broadly, the research hinted at the increasing role of AI, blah, 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 blah. So the thing is, this is vast, but I think the thing is that in terms of, if we're calling them kidfluencers, then, it's clearly you have to imagine. I mean, the thing is, I suppose, is are we like me? Am I taking influencer marketing seriously enough? Because we saw 2 weeks ago when we were talking about the huge negative influence. Like one Instagram post costs a national institution brand, or a brand on a national institution level in the United States, $6 billion. Do you know what I mean? It's like, maybe, I know you've done some work on this, but maybe this is actually much more important than I was thinking, although we all know how important it is. Do you know what I mean? But maybe it's even more important. This Kidfluencer thing makes it actually much more stark. 50 billion views. I don't know what 50 billion is divided. I don't know how many. That's 50,000 million times $6,000. Like, that is vast. That is vast. Okay, good. We can
Yeah.
talk about this all day.
Yeah, look, I mean, since the 80s, endorsement, which is this influencer thing, has been on the rise. It was sort of sitting around 60% back then, and it went up by about 10% every couple of years. Up, 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 up. So God knows what it is now. But really, one of the turning points was Michael Jordan and the Spice Girls. That was one of the massive moments when it became a discipline, if you like, in the
Yes.
marketing world around, these are the 10 factors that you checklist for finding the right endorser, etc. And like, you can have an expert endorser, like, 1 in 3 dentists endorses whatever brand of toothpaste. You can have a customer review, customer endorsement, which is what you see in eBay and Amazon and all of that, where you can't buy a toaster without having somebody say it's got a 5-star review
Yes,
from
yes,
this
yes.
person who has no knowledge of toasters other than they happen to buy this one. And the same, that was sort of the end of Lonely Planet, and travel guides became kind of TripAdvisor. So that trend has gone up, 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 up. This now is starting to get into like uncharted territory, in terms of
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson.
Yep.
psychological safety of children. So I'm glad that it's been raised, I think, and I'm glad that there's been summits held about it, because we have an obligation to. It's not like children have not been used in ads before. Since we had TV, they've been saying, "I like this porridge." I mean, it's not like new, but at this scale, with how much involvement, like, this is just parental, so it's not like they've gone to an advertising agency who've managed the child. It's just
Yeah.
mum and dad who've decided to do it. So that's the difference, and I think it's sort of interesting. We'll see what happens. It's a good story to follow.
Super, super interesting. Yeah. And I think, like, I don't know. I just feel like every ill in the world, or every poor outcome in the world, is just coming because it's more convenient for marketers. Do you know what I mean? I do think that as marketers, we need to take a bit more responsibility and say, actually, this isn't cool to push our products onto children in this way. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. The thing that's getting me today is the scale of it. Like 54 billion views. Like, there's 8 billion people on the planet. We're talking about essentially 7 or 8 views for every human being on the planet. It's vast. It is absolutely vast. Okay, cool.
Well,
Shall
it's,
we
it's
move
also
on?
creating, like, yeah, yeah. Just a super quick, I suppose it's creating also this idea of what a perfect child is supposed to do and look like and feel and behave. So, with the rising trend of suicide from the age of 8, which is really alarming, what is this doing to a child who's 8? Watching
Yes.
these things and thinking, I don't look like Ryan. I don't look like Ryan. I can't. We don't have these toys. That's all that sort of image stuff is always really a bit concerning. So it would, and there's no declaration. This is an ad. This is just like Ryan's world, as opposed
Yes,
to
yes.
Ryan has been asked to have an opinion about this. Please tell your children to understand what is going on. There's none of
Yeah.
that. It's just like, no, don't
100%.
bother educating. Just pile in, and we'll just by stealth sell all this stuff. Yeah. Anyway, carry on.
I can't get over that 54 billion views. Okay, so it
I know
feels to
this.
me like there's a theme emerging. There's often a theme emerging here. So let's go to the next one. This has appeared on Twitter this morning, where I am. It's probably in the evening in the United States. So this is a tweet from Elon Musk, and it says, excuse me, there's a child needing my attention. What's the issue, dude? I don't know, dude. I can help you in 10 minutes. Is that okay? Okay. How is it? Like, if he doesn't know, how am I going to know? Right, so here is a message from Elon Musk, and the message reads, let's move this. On this platform, he's talking about Twitter, unlike the one-way street of broadcast, people are able to interact, critique, and refute whatever is said. And of course, anything misleading will get community notes. I also want to be clear that we have not signed a deal of any kind whatsoever. Tucker is subject to the same rules and rewards of all content creators. Rewards mean subscriptions and advertising revenue share coming soon, which is a function of how many people subscribe and the advertising views associated with the content. I hope that many others, particularly from the left, also choose to be content creators on this platform. So this is because Tucker Carlson has come out and produced this video. Maybe we can get a sense of what this video is without watching all 2 minutes and 50.
You often hear people say the news is... Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. You often hear people say the news is full of lies. But most of the time, that's not exactly right. Much of what you see on television or read the New York Times is in fact true in the literal sense. It could pass one of the media's own fact checks. Lawyers would be willing to sign off on it. In fact, they may have. But that doesn't make it true. It's not true. At the most basic level, the news you consume is a lie of the stealthiest and most insidious kind. Facts have been withheld on purpose, along with proportion and perspective. You are being manipulated. How does that work? Let's see. If I tell you that a man has been unjustly arrested for armed robbery, that is not, strictly speaking, a lie. He may have been framed. At this point, there's been no trial, so no one can really say. But if I don't mention the fact that the same man has been arrested for the same crime 6 times before, am I really informing you? No, I'm not. I'm misleading you. And that's what the news media are doing in every story that matters, every day of the week, every week of the year. What's it like to work in a system like that? After more than 30 years in the middle of it, we could tell you stories. The best you can hope for in the news business at this point is the freedom to tell the fullest truth that you can. But there are always limits. And you know that if you bump up against those limits often enough, you will be fired for it. That's not a guess, it's guaranteed. Every person who works in English language media understands that. The rule of what you can't say defines everything. It's filthy, really, and it's utterly corrupting. You can't have a free society if people aren't allowed to say what they think is true. Speech is the fundamental prerequisite for democracy. That's why it's enshrined in the first of our constitutional amendments. Amazingly, as of tonight, there aren't many platforms left that allow free speech. The last big one remaining in the world, the only one, is Twitter, where we are now. Twitter has long served as the place where our national conversation incubates and develops. Twitter is not a partisan site. Everybody's allowed here, and we think that's a good thing. And yet, for the most part, the news that you see analyzed on Twitter comes from media organizations that are themselves thinly disguised propaganda outlets. You see it on cable news, you talk about it on Twitter. The result may feel like a debate, but actually the gatekeepers are still in charge. We think that's a bad system. We know exactly how it works, and we're sick of it. Starting soon, we'll be bringing a new version of the show we've been doing for the last 6.5 years to Twitter. We'll be bringing some other things too, which we'll tell you about. But for now, we're just grateful to be here. Free speech is the main right that you have. Without it, you have no others. See you soon.
Right. So, this, I think, is worthy of our attention because this is what's going on. Now, Elon Musk is coming out saying, like, we're not doing, like, Tucker will just be posting essentially like anybody else posts. But he will be worth much more than he ever was in his career because now he'll have subscription options, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He was making $12 million a show or something ridiculous. He's going to be more valuable. It's worthy of our attention because what does this mean for marketers? Does it mean that like we don't market on mainstream media anymore? If like the point of marketing is to get the point of that kind of marketing is to get awareness. Like if they are going to fire the person who's getting the most awareness on any of these channels, if they're going to fire that person is now going to go to broadcast themselves effectively. what does it mean for mainstream media? I think what he's saying is really interesting, and it's true. Most sensible people, I think, know in 2023 that what we're getting is a very diluted sense of what's going on in the world. They're deciding what is newsworthy. They're deciding what about that news we should know and shouldn't know, etc., etc. And I think the effect of that is people, you're going to talk about the Edelman report again, maybe, but people are trusting the mainstream media much, much, much less. And especially now, why would you fire the most successful news broadcaster in the United States, and arguably the only successful? Like, some of these channels are struggling to get hundreds of thousands of views. He was getting 3 million people tune in every single day. Like, the point of media is to have audience. Why would you fire the person who's bringing you the audience? The answer is because he was talking much too freely about some against the establishment narrative. That's what's going on. So I think it's interesting like that, and I think marketers need to be paying attention to this. The base story for me is people are cottoning on to the fact that they're not getting told the whole truth, and they're only interested in not the whole truth. They're interested in what's true. Do you know what I mean? In their news, and so I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's interesting he's chosen Twitter as the environment where real truth can be shared.
Yes.
That's fantastic for Twitter.
Yes.
Absolutely fantastic. I mean, he didn't go to Spotify, did he?
No.
He could
He
have.
didn't go to Facebook.
Right?
He didn't go to Instagram.
No.
He didn't go to YouTube. He didn't go to Rumble.
That's right.
You know. So
right?
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting choice. I mean, I also think he has. You're always going to hit a nerve in America if you start talking about constitutional rights. So, you know, I'm like, could someone just get through a sentence without mentioning the Constitution over there, please? It's just like always got to be mentioned. But yeah, I think he did it. He's obviously a great communicator. So that, you know, the way that he unpacked the very simple premise that, you know, the thing is that even if we know that we're being presented with somebody's curated version of the truth, it doesn't mean that we investigate to get the rest of the facts. We don't. We choose where we get our news from, and we hope for the best, that they are aligned with, they're going to present us with what we, you know, what we want to know, what we think is worthy of knowing. But that's not true. Like, you know, it's not. So, I think it's just interesting to me, like you say, with the trust barometer, how social media is coming out the worst and least trusted sector, that he has chosen social media platform Twitter to make his stand. And I'm going to be really interested in what this does for Twitter. I think it can only be good for them because of his platform, his audience. And it is a bit of a message to his previous employer that, you know, his audience is his audience. It's not their audience.
Yes.
And he's not reliant upon them to have a stage. So I do like that about it. Like, if you think about back in the day, if you were fired from the New York Times, that's the end of your platform.
Yes.
You don't get another, you can't just, but now you can just go, well, too bad, so sad, and I'll take my 3 million followers and I'll pop over here at almost no cost to myself. And that's kind of, it's a very, like you say, I think it's a lack of awareness of how what audiences will do. And the fact that he's doing this, I do wonder who else in media is this kind of a Me Too moment? Like, are we going to see journalists, you know, you never just have one. This is something where things start to happen. So it's just, for me, that it's an interesting moment in history for network TV and so forth, and broadcast
the thing
news.
is, it doesn't matter. who the next domino is, like Tucker Carlson is the king domino. Tucker Carlson was effectively the only person who was making like mainstream news work. He was the only person, and he's gone. So it feels like maybe he was the last domino. The rest of them don't even matter. Do you know what I mean? Like, who cares? Like, who cares about any of these other people? Like, The View is like everyone else is just towing the establishment line, you know. So who cares who else goes? Like, this is the Kingpin is gone, and I think, I mean, I don't. The thing is, what it demonstrates more than anything else is that these things are sustained not by audience but by advertiser revenue, and if the advertisers continue to pay them. So this is why it's about marketing, is if the advertisers continue to pay them, or if the advertisers say, we don't like that Tucker Carlson, he's got to go, then he goes. You know, but now, how long is it before the penny drops with the advertisers? Oh, we're not actually reaching markets anymore through these platforms because the people who were bringing the audience are all gone because they weren't saying the things that we wanted to say. And then if you want to get like deeper about it, you have to say, okay, why is the narrative or the objective of these huge advertisers so far removed from what's going on in the world, so far removed from what the marketers are? You know, it's like the tail is wagging the dog. The tail is the providers. The dog is the market, and pretty much the market are feeding back. No, that's not what we're interested in. You know, we're not being force fed these medications, these wars, these whatever it is. You know, it's not what we like. We like people who speak out against those things, but the advertisers clearly don't. Interesting times. Tucker Carlson will be vast. It's huge for Twitter because Twitter now becomes essentially the mainstream Rumble. Like, everyone knows about Twitter. So Rumble is where you have to go if you want to talk about things that the establishment don't like. Now you can go to Twitter and do exactly the same thing. And now I wonder how many of his 3 million daily viewers are now going to be starting up Twitter accounts because they want to see what Tucker Carlson has to say every day. And the place to get that is on Twitter exclusively, you know? So, it's interesting.
Well,
I mean, for me, Tucker Carlson is the Kingpin. Like, he was the only person who was making it work.
I think as well, like Elon Musk's response, it's almost like cut paste from TikTok. So in terms of that, like, we're now going to bring in this reward system for content and you know, so that this is essentially what TikTok is. And so I feel like Twitter is now saying we're going to just dominate that category of rewarding people for good content. Yes. And so get involved. We are the new TikTok. Because I think, of course, in the US is like, get out of here, TikTok, because you're Chinese. And like, I have a whole lot of mixed feelings about how that's being managed, but put that to one side. That creates a void in one way, and you can feel Twitter going, it's okay, we'll be TikTok for you, and we're going to reward you accordingly, blah, blah, blah. So it is an interesting, you know, like, it's an opportunity.
Yeah. See, the truth is, I don't think that's how content creators actually make their money. They make their money by bringing their audience to their own paywalls and getting them to subscribe directly. So if Tucker Carlson can get his 3 million audience across, I think that audience will now balloon because what was stopping people, like, I've never watched him on Fox News. I've only ever seen him on YouTube. That will now balloon. If he can get that audience, I mean, it's ridiculous sums. If he can get that audience paying him $10 a month as a subscription, there's $30 million a month. Do you know what I mean? But that will go up. So Twitter is just the broadcast mechanism. It's just how his audience get to find him, go to his same thing. So, but yeah, it makes absolute sense. I think the bigger thing is like Twitter rewarding, sharing revenue with creators is going to help bring creators, but also Twitter establishing itself as the place where you can talk freely is the huge thing, and where you can attract talent like Tucker Carlson without there even being a conversation. Tucker Carlson just puts his hand up and says, I'm going to put my stuff on Twitter now. Everybody be there. That's huge for Elon Musk.
Well done, Twitter.
Okay, cool. Okay, I've got a child demanding my attention, so let's run through these things. Your second story is about Snapchat making it easier to advertise. What's the story?
Yep. Not much of a story, if we're honest, but I was just observing how they are introducing this thing in Snapchat where you can buy. It's a bit like Google Ads. So you can bubble to the top of a Snapchat search. Previously, you couldn't do that, so it's called First Story, and so you pay to put your ad either between stories of other friends. So when people are in Snapchat, they'll see it. Hi.
Say hello to Melanie Farmer. He wants to know why we talk too much. That's what he wants to know.
That's such a good question.
Why are you
Yeah, so
so
look, it's this has kind of got First Story and Spotlight ads, which is going to change the feeling of Snapchat, so it becomes a lot more ad driven and interrupts what you're there for, which is to see what your friends are up to. So I think it's a mistake. That's what I think. I think people are going to go, why are you throwing ads in my friend feed? Go away with your ads. That's what I think is going to happen.
Yes.
I don't know why they're doing it. It's like, that's not why we...
Because they want to make money. They all want to make money.
TikTok make money and they don't do that. So, yeah, I feel like it's just a bit annoying. But you know what? They're going to generate ad revenue. We'll see how it goes. But they've already reported that there's 170% growth year on year of their ads in Spotlight on Snapchat. So interesting to see what happens with that. But I do think it's not what users want. That's not why we go to Snapchat. So we'll see what happens. There you go. That's my little 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm not.
And I will say, Snapchat.
I know what users have.
Just quickly about that, the users. So Snapchat are like in the 9 out of 10 slot. Well below Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, etc. They're below WhatsApp, Pinterest, Instagram. So they're down. So I guess there's this pressure to say we need to find a way to... Their revenue, by the way, if you look like compared to say TikTok in the 13 billion mark, 34 billion even, Snapchat's like 900 million. So they are much smaller. Their audience, they've got a big audience. Their audience is not dissimilar to TikTok. But they're not monetizing it. So I think that's what's happening. But I do think it's a bit of a mistake. This is not the category that it's not worked. It's failed miserably in a couple of places like Facebook. So I'll see what happens there. There you go. That's my 2 cents on Snapchat.
Okay, cool. And I'm not going to pretend to know what Snapchat users want or like. I installed it. I don't think I ever opened it. I've never spent a second. Like, I've never even... When I'm teaching people, it's like, and we're talking about social media, I've always told them I'm not going to talk about Snapchat. So I don't even pretend to know. I think what Elon Musk has demonstrated that all of these platforms are hugely bloated. They make a lot of money, but they cost a lot of money. So I think now Twitter is down to 1,000 employees from 14,000 when he started. So I think these platforms are all under pressure to make money. And you're 100% right. What they have to do is they have to sell their soul, which is putting advertisers in front of their users, making the experience less good, less valuable. And that's how they get into this trouble. That's what I think. I think they put themselves in trouble. Okay, good. That brings us then to our last story, which will make Devon happy. The last story is just simply LinkedIn is 20 years old. And I think LinkedIn, almost in spite of itself, is an amazing social media platform. So anyone who's not investing in LinkedIn, if you're selling B2B or if you're selling to a particular value of consumer even, LinkedIn is a phenomenal platform for doing that. And I do think it's almost in spite of themselves because I do think, well, we know they make their money on the recruitment product, so that's fine. But they do give away the baby and keep the bathwater, charge for the bathwater. So LinkedIn is a phenomenal thing. It's 20 years old. I gave you guys some training, didn't I, on LinkedIn? It's worked. Has that worked well for you?
Yeah, fantastic. And we're still continuing to use it. We have a lot more followers. Our followers are a lot more in the human resources and executive space. We have a lot more interaction. We have interesting, like we used to post articles in LinkedIn. Now we post them on our website. So we're driving a lot more traffic to our website. But saying that, we're posting that link into LinkedIn, and that's
Yes.
driving traffic to our website.
Yes.
So there's a few little tricks that you taught us, like don't be driving traffic to LinkedIn platform. They have enough. Drive it to your own website. So, things like that we've kind of corrected and sorted out over the last few months. Thank you, Martin. But just amazing. You can just, I guess also follow people, see when they, change careers and so forth. So it's always been good for that. What has been really interesting the last maybe month or two is really diving into some of the groups and getting being in touch with different sectors as to what people are talking about and
Yes.
joining conversations. So I think it's so underrated, and it does start to reveal good and bad groups. I would love to see LinkedIn get their act together a bit with groups, because some of these groups are just really full of ads, and
Yes.
but others are full of rich conversation. So there's no rating for groups in terms of that would be helpful.
That would be
But
helpful.
yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, the thing is about LinkedIn is there's so much that's complete rubbish about it, but the gold is so gold. Do you know what I mean? So it's my favorite thing. I tell people it's the largest, the most dynamic, the most up-to-date, the most accessible database of business-to-business decision makers that has ever and will ever exist. If you need to know exactly who is doing what in your market, then you can find out that for free in about 30 seconds using LinkedIn. I think it's ridiculous and preposterous that it even exists. It amuses me that you get all of this huge value for no money, and you pay some money for things that aren't particularly valuable. I like that. I think LinkedIn is ridiculous and preposterous. A ridiculous and preposterously good thing. I'm glad it's made it to 20 years old, and I'm glad that you have to work a little bit to get the value out of it. Do you know what I mean? Because that means not everybody is, which means it's a good opportunity, I think, for people. Okay, super cool. We got to the end.
Nice work. Well done, us.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here again, Melanie Farmer. For anyone who's still with us, now would be the second best time to like, share, subscribe, comment, get involved. That will give us the motivation to continue, although we are pretty motivated to continue, aren't we, Melanie Farmer?
Yeah. Yeah.
Super cool. I'm going to put something in your diary for 2 weeks' time, so we will be back here again in 2 weeks' time. Thank you so much for being here. You are an absolute legend.
Welcome.
Thank you for taking the time to check out this episode of Marketing News. If you found this interesting and useful, then YouTube thinks you're really going to enjoy this, and this is the last thing that we've posted. If you haven't yet, and you could take a second to like, share, and subscribe and comment, that will give us the motivation to continue on this epic, epic journey.